Welcome to Joy in the City, True Stories Edition. I'm Lindsay Salyards, and for our third Christmas-themed show, we want to show you what God is doing in our city. Coming up, we'll get to know a little bit more about the community organization, the Salvation Army.
Just need a little extra to be able to get through.
Also, we'll address another tough topic during this time of year. All that and more coming up now on Joy in the City, True Stories.
God is on the move, hallelujah. God is on the move in many mighty ways. God is on the move, hallelujah. God is on the move today.
Our first story today features the organization, the Salvation Army. Most people are aware of the Red Kettle Drive each Christmas, but today we're going to dive into what this organization is all about, beginning with Captain Laura Dusenberry explaining how it started many years ago.
Well, the Salvation Army actually started in the East End of London back in 1865, and it was William Booth, who was the founder of the Salvation Army, along with his wife Catherine, who saw that there was a need for folks who were living out on the street, who were down on their luck, and really to be able to meet some basic needs for them, because he believed soup, soap, and salvation, that if material needs, those basic things weren't taken care of, how can you tell somebody that God loves them and that God cares for them if we're not caring for them? So that really is the basic premise of the beginnings of the Salvation Army.
And for anyone who wants that surging, overflowing, effervescing, exuberant spiritual experience that we call abundant life, Jesus by the Spirit is here in this place, waiting to give it to anyone who will seek it.
We too can respond to the God-given call to proclaim the name of Jesus Christ, to witness to Him where we live and where we work, where we go to college, in the hostel, wherever we are, by the anointing of the Holy Spirit.
I pray that the Salvation Army will be known as being a force for good in the world. I pray that the Salvation Army will be a force for positive change and transformation in the communities in which we serve. And I pray that we Salvationists, no matter what our rank, that we will live up to the spiritual values that we proclaim, that we will live them out in our lives. And in that way, I know that God will bless and will lead us.
Given the historical aspects of this organization, we asked, how is this manifested in our community today?
Well, it is pretty amazing how God's blessing has been on the Salvation Army. It was never William Booth's intention to start a church or start a movement. Just to be able to serve people was really the intention there. But it has expanded beyond just those beginning stages, where the Salvation Army is in over 120 countries now, and really meeting basic needs. And we see that as food, clothing, and shelter. And but that looks differently from place to place, in various countries too. The Salvation Army has schools in other countries, and but here in the States, when we look locally, we're still providing some of those basic needs with our food pantry that we operate the state food program for Blair County. So we work with 11 other food pantries in the county, providing that basic need for families who really just need a little extra to be able to get through the month. And, you know, those who are on fixed incomes and really trying to stretch their dollars to the best of their ability. So, you know, we're able to provide that need. And at various times through our emergency disaster services, you know, we're really there to be able to meet people at the point of need. And so sometimes when it comes to a house fire or there's, you know, we're there to help first responders, we're there to help the victims in that moment, and we'll stay through the end. So, and that really is the mission of the Salvation Army, and from the very beginning, to be able to meet people at the point of need, to be able to offer a hand up, and just come alongside individuals and to be a support, so that then through our action that people would recognize God's love. And so that's really our motivation. Unfortunately, people might not know that because, you know, we don't necessarily speak with words. We want to speak with action. And but we're able to share our story then. And even for those of us who are a part of the Salvation Army, our own journeys with God and how God has brought us through. Because many officers that you'll meet, they have their own experience as far as the Salvation Army being there to be able to come alongside their family. And that was my case.
One of the unknown opportunities of the Salvation Army is their spiritual development services. Captain Laura tells us more about this.
Well, our ministry here, while it's very much about social services, we do we want to offer spiritual support as well. So we have services on Sunday. We have Sunday school. We have Sunday school classes for kids of all ages and adults. And we have worship. We have a morning worship service, and then we also have an afternoon service right before our soup kitchen. And we have Bible study here during the week. We have, for our after-school program, when the kids come in, we have a Christian education program that happens right here in our chapel.
During the Christmas season, everyone is familiar with the bell ringing and red kettle collection. Captain Laura explains why this started and why it is so effective for them.
Well, it actually began, the whole concept of the bell ringers and collecting started out in San Francisco in the later 1800s, after the Salvation Army had come over to the United States. And there was a captain in San Francisco that wanted to be able to provide a Christmas meal for those who were on the streets. But he had the problem of, well, how am I going to fund it? How am I going to pay for that meal? And the idea came to him from something he had seen over in England, where somebody had a big cauldron and they were just collecting change. And so that's really kind of how the concept of the kettles had began. And once that was successful, so it just built from there. When that captain, he got transferred to the East Coast, and he brought the idea with him. So it really just kind of spread from there. And now you can even see kettles in Korea, in Europe, they're different, Australia, so lots of places that are very familiar with those kettles that are out at the stores. Now they've looked different over the years, but it's always, and the idea of having somebody there with collecting the donations was about safety and theft, that the donations wouldn't be stolen.
Come here. Look. Okay, where's the baby?
Many have wondered what happens with the funds collected during the kettle collection. As Captain Laura continues, she tells us exactly where the funds are spent and what their goals are.
Well, for us here in Altoona, the money that we collect at the stores stays in Altoona. It stays in the area that we're collecting in to be able to provide services. Now, our goal for our Christmas Kettle campaign is $100,000, and for me, that's the Christmas miracle every year that we're able to reach that goal. And this year, so last year we made $96,000. So our goal this year is $100,000. Because our hope is that as we receive those donations, then we're able to provide more services to area families. But the donations do stay within our community. We have, I believe it's 12 locations here in Altoona. One of the things that we want to partner with people in the community. We want to get our message out so that people are aware of what those dollars are going towards, and that also helps us in being able to build those partnerships. Really, and I've always said this, is that our volunteers and those who come alongside us are really the army behind the army, because we wouldn't be able to do it without them. And as the trend has gone over the years, where more people have to work. There's two working, families, mom and dad are working in the household. So there's less of a volunteer base that we have to work from. So the churches that come alongside, the other service groups that come to be able to man those kettles really are helping us a great deal, because for some of our workers, we have a small handful of volunteers. The rest are paid workers, and we pay them minimum wage. So those groups and those churches that come alongside, 100% of what they're collecting in the day then is able to go directly to services.
Captain Laura walks us through how families can be the recipient of the Christmas season opportunity.
Yes, we actually do an application process, really, and that starts in the beginning of October, believe it or not. Our Christmas planning starts even before then. But we do an intake process where families come in, they have to provide us information, and then they fill out some paperwork for us, and they also do wish lists for their children. So at that time then, the families that we serve that come in at that time, we will help them with food for the Christmas holiday meal, and then we will also provide for their children that are 12 and under gifts. And we do the Treasures for Children's program, which is very much like the Angel Tree program, where you pick a tag off a tree, you adopt that child and buy a gift for them. We will do about 275 families, and that translates to almost 450 children. And then as far as individuals, I don't quite have the numbers for that. And one of the things for the Salvation Army too is that we will do our best to continue to help people even up until Christmas. We might be a little bit limited based on what we have, but we will do our very best to help families. Because there's varying scenarios where individuals, you think, well, people should know Christmas is coming, and why they wait so long? But there's been instances where somebody had lost a job, and they were expecting their unemployment to kick in, and it didn't kick in yet. So now they're faced with, I really wanted to be able to provide this for my family, but now I'm in a situation where it's a crisis for them, and they can't. And so we come alongside to be able to help in that way.
As you watch this, you may want to participate in the donation of time and resources to the Salvation Army. She explains what the funding covers.
Well, one of the things for our Christmas campaign with the Red Kettles, while that helps to fund what we're doing at Christmas time, really the money that we collect becomes a third of our operating budget for the year. So that money is not only just strictly for Christmas assistance, it allows us to provide assistance throughout the year. And some of the other things that we do are after school program. We have a summer day camp. We have a residential camp where we send kids away for a week that they can go and enjoy the camping experience. And then, of course, we have our food pantry, our soup kitchen, and then financial assistance when people are in crisis when it comes to utilities or rent. So really those funds that we collect at Christmas time allows us to provide a wider range of services to our community. So if they come, that this is going to air on the 23rd, they're certainly able to still continue and make a donation to us if they want to be able to be a part of that Christmas campaign. Well, certainly there's always opportunities throughout the year where we look for volunteers, additional volunteers to be able to come alongside. Our Sunday soup kitchen, and even for our youth programs. Now, when it comes to some of these programs that we offer, volunteers are required to fill out clearances, and we take background checks because we want to make sure our kids are safe, our people are safe. So those are requirements for some of the programs that we have. There's always work to be done over at our food warehouse and to be able to help pull orders and those kind of things. So there's always volunteer opportunities around, even if somebody just wants to come in and give us a hand to clean up, because we really have a very small staff here. So we rely on our volunteers even just to answer the phone for us sometimes, to be able to so we can focus on the work that we need to do and provide those services. So if even people with physical limitations, and they're able to come in and answer phones, that's certainly something that we can look at and work with individuals and see where they might best fit in our volunteer scheme.
This past week, the Salvation Army started collecting the toys for the Treasures for Children program.
Yes, well, yes. We this week we started to collect all the toys from our Treasures for Children program. So all of those we're getting those in now so that we can start the sorting process and getting ready for our distribution. Because we do want to make sure that everything is appropriate for children. It's age appropriate. That as far as sizes for clothing and all of that match the wish list.
Captain Laura explains how there's often confusion as to the separate entities of the Salvation Army.
The only thing that I could think of that sometimes is a bit of a misconception is that when you look at the thrift stores, the thrift stores are actually run and operated by the Adult Rehabilitation Center. So the funds that are received from the thrift stores goes to operate that ministry of the Salvation Army. And so when they're donating to the Red Kettle, then that's coming to us. And so it's separate operations. While we're all within the Salvation Army, we're two separate kind of entities, and the ministry that happens there at the Adult Rehabilitation Center is a great ministry, and redemption is happening in the lives of the men who are there, and that's a work therapy program. So they're working 40 hours a week and going to classes, having their AA meetings, and a wider range of things there for them. So, but I think that is one of the things that people just don't always understand, that that is certainly a viable place to be able to donate and know that it is going to change lives. And but then for us, that our donations come through those who are dropping the money in the Red Kettles or sending in monetary donations. Right, really the only time that it comes together would be at our territorial headquarters. So in our territorial headquarters is in New York. So, but divisionally, and we're part of the Western Pennsylvania division of the Salvation Army. So our overseers are in Pittsburgh, but then for the Adult Rehabilitation Center, they answered directly to territorial headquarters. And then for us too, as far as our deep desire is to be good stewards of the donations that we receive. So we have a lot of checks and balances in place to make sure that we are using our money wisely and using it efficiently. We have an advisory board that's made up of local businessmen and women who come and they review our finances, and so that's one checks and balance that we have in place. The other thing is that we have our headquarters office in Pittsburgh who they audit us every year, and so all of those things are happening so that we are being good stewards of the finances that we are receiving.
As we closed our discussion, we asked if there's anything additional she wanted us to share to more effectively communicate the heartbeat of the Salvation Army.
Okay. Sure. Well, actually, I'll share something that really is, it's one of those trophies of grace, where we have a gentleman here who had graduated from the Adult Rehabilitation Center many years ago, and he's now volunteering here, and he's very active in our church, and he helps out with our youth programs, and his life is the transformation that and that redemption story that we just we want to celebrate and say, this is what the Salvation Army is doing. And even in my own life, my mom raising my mom who's single, raising 2 kids on her own, and that the Salvation Army was the safe place for my sister and I, because we were involved with the programs at the Salvation Army. It kept us out of a lot of trouble that we could have easily gotten into, and it's because of that, and I'm grateful to the Lord because of Him using the Salvation Army to be that vehicle to be able to direct my family, and my sister, she's doing great. Her and her family are doing very well, and that God, because of the ministry of the Salvation Army, called me into full-time ministry here in the Salvation Army. And there's many testimonies like that, but for the men who are at the ARC and seeing those transformations happen, but also the ministry here, seeing the difference that we make in the lives of kids and in families that come in and they find Jesus here, and those are the things that we most cherish. We can do a lot of good work, but it's the transformation that happens in the lives of people, and those redemption stories that really keep us going. We don't shy away from sharing Jesus with people, but we're certainly not going to be so abrasive in our approach with sharing the gospel, because many times it's really the action that speaks louder than words, and so we want to show people God's love, and that's really what William Booth started the Salvation Army for in the first place, was to show people, because if they're suffering and humanity is suffering, and if we can't give them those hand ups, to be able to come alongside, and sometimes it's just a matter of coming alongside and walking the journey with them, and just to be able to be that for people and showing the love of Christ is what changes lives.
This Christmas, the Salvation Army will distribute gifts to close to 450 children in our city. What an amazing honor to be connected to this service. If you would like more information about the Salvation Army or get connected to them to donate or volunteer, you can contact Captain Laura at 814-942-8104. Our second item today is addressing another tough topic. Pastor Jim Balzano comes back to challenge us with our responses during the Christmas season.
I want to take a few moments today to discuss with you our responses to individuals and families who are going through the heartache of lost loved ones this holiday season. When I think about responding to people dealing with the pain of loss this time of year, I think it's important to understand that people dealing with loss deal with it more than just during the holidays, but the holidays seem to increase the pain and sadness people have over the death of loved ones. It's during these times that families and friends will gather together to celebrate. There's joy, happiness, and fun during these celebrations, but the fact is, there's one missing. There is still an empty seat around the table that used to be filled by that person who is now gone. How can you and I help those dealing with this? I think there are a couple things we can do. One, minimize your expectations. Many times I've heard people put their expectations on those who are grieving. I've heard them say something like they should be over it by now, or they need to stop grieving. Allow people the space and the grace to mourn those they love. People deal with death differently than each other. Don't allow your experience to become your expectation of others. The second thing is talk about the deceased. We've all been there. We have friends or family who lose someone and we aren't sure what to say. Should I talk about them or not? Most people who lose someone aren't afraid of talking about the one they lost. As a matter of fact, they want you to remember the one they lost. Talking about them, sharing stories about them, and generally remembering them is often a great help to those dealing with grief. The third thing I would say is find a way to express your love for those who are grieving. There are many ways that you can simply remind someone that you love them and you care about them. A card, an act of kindness, or something special just to let them know you love them. Isaiah 61 says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the afflicted. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to captives and freedom to the prisoners." Part of the work of the Messiah, whom we celebrate this Christmas season, was to bind up the brokenhearted. This Christmas season, I challenge you to be like him and be part of helping to heal those who are dealing with broken hearts this time of year. Have a great Christmas.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you for watching Joy in the City True Stories. Be sure to join us every Monday and Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m. as we share challenging messages from Pleasant Valley Assembly of God. Then, we will return next Friday for another edition of Joy in the City True Stories. Until then, be encouraged because God is moving in our city.
God is on the move, on the move.